For a few questions, there are 2 mics on each side. Why don't we start?
Thank you very much. I'm Jewish, and I encounter 2 types, generally, of American Jews who are not leftists or they are not pro-Palestine. One sect says they feel offended by all kinds of pro-Palestine rhetoric. They feel offended and victimized in some way, which the American Jewish minority is the only kind which gets away with saying they feel victimized, and that's the extent of what needs to be said in order for action to be taken to assuage their feelings. The other group is kind of a typically Orthodox group. They are fairly violent or extremist. They're the kind who go to the auctions of land and they buy up land that has been bulldozed and is now for sale. And you'll often see them with Lahava flags, which is a extremist and violent, especially violent Israeli contingent. What is your approach to those and feelings about these 2 types of American Jewry today?
Well, actually, I think you accurately characterize them. This notion that a person can silence speech that makes him or her feel uncomfortable, unwelcome, and unwanted. Uncomfortable, unwelcome, and unwanted. That was one of the lamentable consequences of that phenomenon that came to be called cancel culture. That on college campuses, some quote-unquote liberal or radical groups tried to impose this standard such that you can cancel a person, silence them. And in that book I wrote, called I'll Burn That Bridge When I Get to It, I said not only is this standard preposterous, that you can silence speech that hurts your feelings, but I wrote it's going to backfire. That it's only a matter of time when pro-Israel people say a Palestinian speaker makes them feel unwelcome, unwanted, uncomfortable. And that's exactly what happened. But there's a big difference. When the woke brigades used that standard, they had nothing except their mouths and their bodies to back it. But when pro-Israel Jewish students used that standard, they had a Jewish supremacist billionaire class who could back them by threatening to withhold very significant sums in alumni money. So it became a total disaster. What I believe needs to be done is very simple. I said earlier, we have to reclaim our heritage. Now, I am not a flag waver, but facts are stubborn things. We actually have a very good history on free speech in this country. How many of you in the room know that our Supreme Court has ruled, explicitly ruled, you have the right to advocate the violent overthrow of our government? That's our right. That's what our court ruled. How many of you know our Supreme Court has ruled you have the right to burn the American flag? That's our jurisprudence. Now, if, for example, you read the Supreme Court decision on the burning of the flag, I think it was 1989, the Chief Justice on the court was a fellow named William Rehnquist. And he wrote this very long dissent. And he said, "My feelings are devastated by this." He said, "I love the American flag." He said, "Remember the Americans who hoisted the American flag at the Battle of Iwo Jima. The Americans who marched into battle holding that American flag." His feelings were really hurt. It was totally authentic. It was totally authentic. But the point being, hurt feelings are not, in our jurisprudence, in our country, they are not grounds for silencing speech. And we have to reclaim that heritage. It was fought for. The Supreme Court didn't grant those immunities out of magnanimity. Those were battles that were fought. For those of you who are older in the room, the battle for free speech in American college campuses, it was only won in the 1960s. How many of you have heard of the Berkeley free speech movement? Raise your hand. Yeah, that was a battle. In Berkeley, you were, the radical hotbed, Berkeley, you were not allowed to have tables out supporting a socialist party. You weren't allowed to do that. That was the battle for free speech at Berkeley, which then spread to our country. That was a very hard-fought battle. And now it's all being reversed before our eyes. So I think that has to be the line of attack and the line of defense. We are defending rights which were already won in this country. And as you know, some people on the right are themselves saying, after the remarks following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, where there were threats made about silencing this and that speech. And I remember one commentator on the right, his name is Britt Hume. He said, "Wait, you can't do that. We have those rights here. It's all been forgotten." And one of the reasons it's been forgotten is because of that disaster called cancel culture and woke culture. It was, in my opinion, a disaster. I wrote a 610-page book trying to document it, and I think now a lot of people have come around to we have a problem here. Because for so long, we were saying feelings are a right to veto speech. And that's exactly what the Jewish supremacist class ran with. Jewish students feel unsafe, unwelcome, and uncomfortable. And people didn't know how to answer that because they used that standard themselves. In our country, if you have the right to advocate the violent overthrow of our government, then a slogan like "from the river to the sea," it's like small change. It's nothing. If you compare it to the rights that have been won. We had a Supreme Court case where this evangelical Christian sect was picketing outside the funeral of an American soldier who was killed. Right outside the funeral. They were picketing, holding up signs saying things like, "Kill all fags," and things of that sort. The court ruled they had the right. So the sorts of claims that were made with regard to the encampments, they were chanting the slogan, "From the river to the sea." Personally, I don't like the slogan. But to my thinking, that's irrelevant. They have the right to chant those slogans.
Thank you.
You're welcome.